At precisely 3:33 a.m., the train arrived again. Its sleek, black form emerged from the dense fog, casting an ominous shadow over the forgotten railway station. Every night for weeks, it had appeared without explanation, and every night, no one dared to board. The sound of its wheels screeching along the tracks was unsettling, echoing through the silence like a haunting reminder that something unnatural lurked in the night. Jason had witnessed it many times before, always from a distance, never daring to go closer. But tonight felt different. A strange compulsion gripped him, one that tugged at his every thought. He had to know what it was. What did it want? What was its purpose? In a world full of unanswered questions, the black train at 3:33 a.m. was the greatest mystery, and Jason could no longer ignore it. Tonight, he would step into the darkness. The railway station sat abandoned on the edge of town, its once vibrant colors now faded and weathered by years of neglect. The air was thick with an eerie fog that seemed to seep from the ground, curling around rusted iron rails and old wooden planks. The only sounds were the distant chirps of crickets and the occasional howl of the wind, brushing against the derelict building like a forgotten ghost. The train tracks stretched into the darkness, leading nowhere, vanishing into an endless expanse of shadow and mist. No one remembered when the last train had passed through, or when the station had been abandoned. Time here seemed suspended, caught in a place where even the sun hesitated to shine. The world beyond was quiet, desolate, as if it too had forgotten the significance of the strange events that unfolded each night. Jason was an ordinary man by most standards. He worked as a mechanic during the day and spent his nights in solitude, wandering the empty streets of the town that felt more like a forgotten memory than a living place. His life had once been filled with meaning, but now, it seemed like every day passed the same, uneventful and gray. However, for the past few weeks, there had been one exception: the black train. Every night, it appeared without fail, and Jason couldn't shake the feeling that it was calling him. It started as a mere curiosity, but over time, his obsession grew. He had to know. He had to see it for himself. His heart raced every time the clock struck 3:33 a.m., knowing that the train would be there, waiting. Something about it seemed impossible, otherworldly, and Jason knew that sooner or later, he would have to face whatever it was that haunted the tracks. The night was colder than usual, the air biting at his skin as Jason stood in the shadows, watching the train from a distance. He had grown used to its appearance by now, but tonight, something felt off. The train seemed to move slower, its wheels grinding against the tracks with an unnatural sound. Jason squinted through the fog, trying to make out the details of the black train. There were no lights in its windows, no sign of life. It was as if the train itself was alive, an entity that moved through the world without explanation. As he stepped closer, a strange chill ran down his spine. He could hear faint whispers on the wind, voices that seemed to call out to him, though no one was around. His heart beat faster, and he felt a sudden urge to get closer, to understand what this thing was. But as he took another step, something shifted in the air, a sudden distortion as if time itself had bent. The following nights grew more intense. The black train did not simply appear, it began to affect everything around it. The once clear sky would darken the moment it arrived, the moon vanishing behind thick clouds. The ground trembled with each arrival, the station vibrating as though the earth itself was being pulled into another dimension. Jason's nights became restless, his sleep disturbed by vivid nightmares of the train. He would wake up in cold sweats, hearing the screeching of its wheels in his mind, feeling the vibrations under his skin. He started to lose track of time. Hours blurred into minutes, and minutes stretched into hours. His obsession deepened as he spent every night at the station, waiting for the inevitable appearance of the black train. The lines between reality and madness began to blur. What was real? What was imagined? And why could he not stop? One evening, Jason stood at the edge of the platform, staring down at the tracks as the black train approached. His heart pounded in his chest, and for the first time, he understood the true pull it had on him. It was no longer curiosity. It was something darker, something that had taken root deep within him. The whispers had grown louder in his mind, calling to him with a promise of answers, of understanding. Jason knew that tonight, he would board the train. He had to. There was no going back. He had prepared himself, bringing a small camera and a notebook to document whatever happened. His hands trembled as he stepped forward, the train coming closer with every second. He felt the weight of the decision settle on his shoulders. What would happen once he boarded? Would he find answers, or would he be lost forever in the train's endless journey? The moment Jason stepped onto the train, he was struck by the unnatural stillness inside. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of decay and rust. The train's interior was far too vast, the compartments stretching beyond what should have been possible. The walls seemed to warp, their angles bending in impossible ways, creating endless corridors that twisted and turned, leading nowhere. The flickering of dim lights cast long, haunting shadows on the walls, making every corner feel like it hid something just out of sight. He heard footsteps behind him, but when he turned around, no one was there. The train seemed to stretch forever, its length expanding in ways that defied logic. And yet, there was something familiar about it, something that gnawed at the edges of his mind. He could hear whispers again, more clearly this time. They were not just in his head. They were coming from the passengers. The passengers aboard the black train were not alive. They were shades, silhouettes of people who had long since passed. Jason realized that the train was not a physical vehicle, but a bridge between worlds, a vessel that carried the souls of the lost and the forgotten. He moved through the compartments, each one revealing more of the truth. There were faces, familiar faces, some of them strangers, trapped in eternal limbo, their eyes vacant, their bodies frozen in time. Some seemed to recognize him, others stared straight through him as if he did not exist. It was then that Jason understood. The train was a purgatory, a place where souls were kept until they were claimed or lost forever. He faced a terrible truth. He was not supposed to be here. He had crossed into a realm where time and space did not apply. And now, there was no way out. When Jason finally found the train's conductor, an old man dressed in black, he was offered a choice: return to his world, forever haunted by what he had seen, or join the endless ride, never to be free again. With his mind unraveling and his heart heavy with dread, Jason chose the first option. But when the train finally stopped at the station, he was not the same. The fog had lifted, the air was still, and the town was silent as ever. Yet something lingered. Jason's eyes darted around the familiar streets, but the world no longer felt like his own. Every shadow seemed deeper, every noise more ominous. He had escaped, but the black train had followed him, its presence inescapable. He was not free. He had only traded one form of captivity for another. Weeks passed, but Jason could not shake the feeling of being watched. And then one night, as the clock struck 3:33 a.m., he heard it again, the distant whistle of the black train. It had returned. He rushed to the window, but it was too late. The train was already on the tracks, its black form moving through the fog. Jason stood frozen, the memories of what he had seen now haunting every moment of his life. The train had never left. It had always been waiting.